Have you ever heard of a city frozen in time? A place where a single catastrophic day in history preserved the lives of its people for nearly 2,000 years? Today, we're journeying back to ancient Rome to uncover the incredible and tragic story of Pompeii. Imagine a bustling Roman city, nestled in the shadow of a mountain. It's 79 AD, the sun is shining, the markets are full, and life is good. People are going about their day, completely unaware that the mountain they live beside, Mount Vesuvius, isn't just a mountain. It's a sleeping giant, a volcano that's about to wake up in the most devastating way possible. For years, there had been warning signs, small earthquakes, tremors shaking the ground. But the people of Pompeii were used to them. They were a part of life. They repaired their buildings and carried on, never suspecting the true danger that lurked beneath. They didn't even have a word for volcano. To them, Vesuvius was just a beautiful green mountain, covered in vineyards and farms. Then, around noon on a late summer day, everything changed. A massive explosion, more powerful than an atomic bomb, ripped the top off Mount Vesuvius. A colossal column of smoke, ash, and pumice stone shot miles into the sky, blotting out the sun and turning day into night. Panic swept through the streets of Pompeii, the air filled with falling debris. Small, lightweight pumice stones rained down first, piling up in the streets and on the rooftops. It was terrifying, but for some, it still seemed survivable. Many people tried to flee, grabbing their most precious belongings and heading for the coast. Others chose to hide, hoping to wait out the storm in their sturdy stone houses. This initial phase lasted for hours. The city was buried under several feet of pumice and ash. Roofs began to collapse under the weight. The air grew thick and difficult to breathe. But the worst was yet to come. As the eruption column lost its upward momentum, it collapsed. A pyroclastic surge, a superheated, fast-moving cloud of gas, ash, and rock rushed down the slopes of Vesuvius. It moved at hundreds of miles per hour, with temperatures hot enough to boil water instantly. This first surge hit the nearby town of Herculaneum, killing everyone in its path instantly. For the people still in Pompeii, their fate was sealed. Several more surges followed. These deadly clouds swept through the city, engulfing everything. The intense heat was the main killer. It was so extreme that it caused instantaneous death, a thermal shock that left its victims in the exact position they were in at their last moment of life. When the eruption finally ended, Pompeii was gone. It lay buried under more than 20 feet of volcanic material, lost and forgotten for centuries. It wasn't a slow burial. It was a sudden entombment. The city and its people were perfectly preserved, sealed away from the world. For over 1,500 years, the story of Pompeii was just a legend. Then, in the 18th century, explorers began to unearth this lost world. What they found was astonishing. It wasn't just ruins. It was a snapshot of Roman life. They found homes with furniture still in place, bakeries with loaves of bread still in the ovens, and vibrant frescoes still decorating the walls. They discovered graffiti on the walls, revealing the everyday thoughts, jokes, and political slogans of the Roman people. It was like walking into a city where time had simply stopped. One of the most haunting and famous discoveries came in the 1860s. Archaeologists noticed that there were strange voids in the hardened layers of ash. They realized these were the spaces left behind by decomposed bodies. An archaeologist named Giuseppe Fiorelli had a brilliant idea. He carefully pumped plaster into these cavities. The result was chilling and profoundly human. The plaster filled the voids, creating detailed casts of the people of Pompeii at the moment of their death. We see families huddled together, individuals curled up alone, a dog chained to its post. These casts are not statues. They are the final poses of real people, frozen in their last moments of struggle and despair. They show us mothers shielding their children, friends embracing, and people trying to shield their faces from the ash. It's a powerful and heartbreaking reminder of the human cost of this disaster. These casts, along with the incredible state of preservation, make Pompeii unique. It's not just a collection of artifacts. It's a human story. We can walk the same stone streets, enter the same homes, and see the same art that the citizens of Pompeii saw 2 millennia ago. We can learn about their jobs, their food, their politics, and their beliefs in a way that no history book could ever teach us. From the grand amphitheater where gladiators fought, to the cozy taverns where locals shared a drink, every corner of Pompeii tells a story. We can see the ruts in the roads, worn down by chariot wheels. We can visit the lavish villas of the wealthy, with their beautiful gardens and intricate mosaics, and compare them to the more modest homes of the working class. The eruption of Vesuvius was an immense tragedy, but it also created an unparalleled archaeological treasure. It gave us a direct window into the Roman world, preserving a moment in time with incredible detail. Today, Pompeii is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, visited by millions who come to walk its ancient streets and pay respect to the people who once called it home. The story of Pompeii is a humbling reminder of the power of nature and the fragility of human life. But it's also a story of resilience, not of the people who are lost, but of their memory, which has survived against all odds, teaching us more about our own history. It shows us that even in the face of total destruction, stories can endure, waiting beneath the surface to be told again. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey to the heart of ancient Rome. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most incredible moments. See you next time. Yet beneath the surface of this vibrant daily life, there were cracks, both literal and metaphorical. Pompeii had suffered a devastating earthquake 17 years prior, in AD 62. The damage from that quake was still visible everywhere. Columns were crooked, held up by makeshift braces. Buildings had been rebuilt in a hasty, cheaper style. Temples were still under repair. The people lived with a low-level hum of anxiety, a constant reminder that the ground beneath them was not entirely stable. But humans are remarkably adaptable. Over time, the fear subsided into routine. They accepted the tremors, the frequent low-level shaking, as just another part of life, much like we accept the weather. They had no concept of plate tectonics or volcanology. To them, the earth was solid, permanent. They could not conceive that the mountain itself was a pressure cooker of magma and gas, ticking down toward a catastrophic release. This brings us to the turning point, the moment that separates the before from the after. It was around noon on August 24th, though some historical evidence suggests it might have been October, when the mountain finally gave its warning. It wasn't a roar at first. It was a shock. A massive earthquake, far stronger than the tremors they were used to, shook the city. Columns swayed, tiles fell from roofs. In the busy forum, people froze, panic flashing in their eyes. But as the shaking stopped, a second phenomenon began. A column of smoke, debris, and superheated gas shot miles into the sky, punching through the clouds. It looked like a pine tree, an ancient observer would later write, shooting straight up before spreading out at the top. Pliny the Younger, watching from across the bay in Misenum, described it with scientific detachment, but the people of Pompeii saw the shadow of death. What happened next was a chain reaction of confusion and terror. As the eruption column reached the stratosphere, the debris began to cool and fall back to Earth. A rain of pumice light, porous volcanic rock, began to shower the city. At first, it was just a nuisance, small stones bouncing off helmets and roofs. But quickly, the rain intensified. The sky darkened, turning from blue to a bruised purple, then to a suffocating black. The pumice began to accumulate. It buried the streets, making movement impossible. Roofs, burdened by the weight of the stone, began to collapse with terrifying crashes. The wind blew the pumice southeast, burying Pompeii while sparing the city of Herculaneum to the west, at least for a while. But the disaster was far from over. The visual of the city during the eruption is one of pure chaos. The wealthy men who had lingered in their baths or dining rooms now ran frantically through the streets, holding pillows over their heads to protect against the falling stones. The heavy rain that accompanied the eruption turned the pumice into a muddy slush, weighing down everything it touched. We can see the terrified faces of mothers clutching their children, trying to navigate the familiar streets that were now unrecognizable landscapes of gray stone. The darkness was absolute. It was the middle of the day, but it looked like midnight. Volcanic lightning crackled in the ash cloud above, illuminating the falling debris in strobe-like flashes of horror. The air became thick with toxic gas, sulfur choking the lungs of every living thing trapped in the city. And then came the pyroclastic surges. This was the killer. The column of debris, collapsing into the air, created ground-hugging currents of superheated gas and rock that moved faster than a hurricane, faster than any human could run. The first surge might not have reached the city walls, but later ones did. When these pyroclastic flows hit Pompeii, the temperature reached over 400 degrees Fahrenheit. It was an instant, heat-driven death. People were killed where they stood, where they hid, where they prayed. Those who were sheltering in cellars or in the inner rooms of houses were asphyxiated by the toxic air, their lungs filling with ash and gas. The city did not just fall. It was baked and sealed. The vibrant colors of the frescoes were scorched. The wooden furniture was carbonized. The people were preserved not as bodies, but as voids in the hardened ash, waiting centuries to be filled with plaster and revealed to the world. The silence that followed the eruption was absolute. The mountain had spent its fury, burying Pompeii under 4 to 6 meters of ash and pumice. The city disappeared from the map, wiped so completely from the landscape that people forgot it had ever existed. The after was a desolate plain of gray, hard rock, a wasteland where vineyards and olive groves slowly grew over the years, hiding the secrets beneath. Nature moved on. The wind blew across the hardened tuff, erasing the last traces of the streets. For 1,600 years, Pompeii was just a rumor, a ghost story, a name mentioned in ancient texts by Pliny, but not found on any map. The tragedy was frozen in time, a moment of maximum terror suspended in the geological record. The bustling marketplace, the smell of the bakery, the shouting of the politicians, the laughter of the lovers, all of it ceased in a single violent geological heartbeat. This brings us to the modern era, the second half of the after. The rediscovery of Pompeii began in the 16th century, but serious excavation didn't start until 1748 under the Bourbon King of Naples. When diggers finally broke through the hard layer of rock, they didn't find a city, they found a void. As they tunneled, they found hollows in the ash. An architect named Giuseppe Fiorelli had the brilliant idea of pouring plaster into these hollows. When the plaster dried and the ash was removed, the results were heart-stoppingly emotional. The plaster revealed the exact shape of the people at the moment of their death. A mother shielding her child, a dog writhing on its chain, lovers lying side by side, a man with his hands over his mouth, gasping for air. This was the bridge between the before and the after. These plaster casts transformed the history from an academic study into a human tragedy. They forced the world to see the victims not as ancient Romans, but as human beings who had felt the same pain and fear we would feel today. Walking through the ruins of Pompeii today, or visualizing them through modern AI technology, we experience a strange duality. We see the grandeur of the Roman Empire frozen in stone, but we also feel the intimacy of daily life interrupted. We see the ruts in the roads and know exactly where the chariot wheels turned. We see the graffiti and hear the whispers of political arguments. We look at the stepping stones and imagine the slaves stepping carefully over the sewage. The AI historical visualization allows us to peel back the layers of gray ash and superimpose the vibrant colors of the past. We can stand in the center of the forum and watch the digital reconstruction of the Temple of Jupiter gleaming in the sun, only to fade it away to the broken columns that stand there now. It is a haunting juxtaposition of beauty and destruction. The story of Pompeii, before and after, is more than just a tale of a natural disaster. It is a mirror held up to our own civilization. In the before, we see a society that thought it was safe. They built their homes, they made their money, they laughed and they loved, assuming the ground would always hold firm and the sun would always rise. They were masters of their domain, living at the height of the Roman Empire's power. Yet, they were vulnerable to forces they could not see or understand. Their technology, their laws, and their gods could not save them from the geology of the planet. They believed in their immortality, and they were wrong. In the after, we see the fragility of human achievement. An entire city, a complex web of thousands of lives, was erased in a day. The artifacts left behind tell us a story of sudden departure. Meals were left uneaten on tables. Jewels were hastily hidden in the walls. People died with money in their pockets. It shows us that in the end, our possessions mean nothing. The rich merchant and the poor slave died exactly the same death, buried side by side in the same gray ash. The pyroclastic flow did not care about social status. The volcano is the ultimate equalizer. But there is also a strange form of immortality in the after. Pompeii was preserved by the very thing that destroyed it. Had the volcano not erupted, the city would have eventually decayed, been built over, or looted for its stone, like so many other ancient Roman cities. Instead, the ash acted as a time capsule, locking in the details of Roman life with a precision that no other site can offer. We know exactly what they ate because the carbonized bread survived. We know exactly what they talked about because the graffiti survived. We know exactly how they decorated their homes because the pigments were protected from the sun and wind. Pompeii gives us a window into the past that is disturbingly clear. It allows us to look into the eyes of the ancient world and see our own reflection. As we visualize the contrast between the colorful before and the gray after, we are struck by the speed of the transition. It is a reminder of the unpredictability of existence. One moment, the city was alive with the sounds of hammers in the shops, the chatter of children, and the bark of street vendors. The next moment, there was only the roaring of the mountain and the whistle of falling pumice. The silence that followed lasted for centuries. The city became a sleeping city, a museum of human tragedy waiting for the future to come and find it. The modern reconstructions, powered by artificial intelligence, allow us to bring this duality to life. We can watch the buildings rise from the ruins, the colors returning to the frescoes, the people filling the streets. We can simulate the eruption, showing the cloud rising, the ash falling, and the darkness descending. This technology forces us to confront the reality of the event, not as a distant history, but as a visceral experience. It makes the tragedy real again. It connects the 21st century viewer to the first century victim across a divide of nearly 2,000 years. We can see the humanity in the plaster casts, recognizing our own fears and our own desire to protect our loved ones. Pompeii teaches us about the hubris of humanity. The Romans of AD 79 were not primitive. They were sophisticated engineers. They had complex laws. They had literature and art. They lived in a world they thought they controlled. But nature reminded them that they were small. The mountain stood silently for generations, lulling them into complacency. It was a dormant giant that woke up with a vengeance. The after is a testament to the fact that we are not the masters of this planet. We are merely tenants, living on the surface of a dynamic and often violent earth. As we conclude this journey from the bright sunlight of the Forum to the dark ash of the excavation, we are left with a lingering sense of melancholy. The before was vibrant and messy and beautiful. The after is silent and gray and still. The bridge between them is the eruption, a moment of violence that stopped the clock. But in that silence, there is a lesson. Pompeii forces us to appreciate the present. It reminds us that our cities, our cultures, and our lives are fragile and temporary. We build our own towers and pave our own streets, often forgetting that everything we create is on borrowed time. Walking through the virtual streets of the ancient city, watching the sun glint off the marble, and then watching the ash swallow it whole, we are witnesses to the greatest drama of the ancient world. It is a drama of life, death, and the strange endurance of memory. The people of Pompeii are gone. Their voices were silenced by the ash, but their story remains. It is etched in the stone, preserved in the plaster, and revitalized by our technology. They lived, they loved, they suffered, and they died. And because of that, they will never be forgotten. The ashes of Vesuvius did not just bury a city, they immortalized it. And as we look back at them from the safety of our own time, we must ask ourselves, what will we leave behind when our own mountain decides to wake?